Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ask the CEO with Avraham Gatile. Today, I'd like to introduce a very special guest. He's a workaholic, software engineer, creator, and gamer. He's the founder and CEO of eSports and professional gaming startup Athletes.gg. Prior to starting Athletes.gg, he was an integrations and professional services manager at Tenfold, where he managed a large engineering team as well as relationships with partners and enterprise customers. Prior to joining Tenfold, he held several positions as lead software engineer, most recently at Springbox, where he led many projects for large enterprise clients. And prior to that at Help.com, where he built up their entire engineering foundation for both the code and the culture. He started programming computer games when he was just 8 years old. In his senior year of college, he realized that building things is what he loved to do, so he joined the amazing world of startups and never looked back. It is my pleasure to welcome the one and only Alex Martin. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you very much, Avraham.
It's a pleasure having you, Alex. You know, I'm really excited talking to you because many people just don't get the gaming industry. I mean, they think it's just a bunch of kids playing video games. However, as we've seen with games such as Pokemon Go, that there are real world business implications, and the businesses that got it, they were able to leverage that platform to drive business and real customers and dollars to their businesses. So every kind of business should be leveraging this demographic. Can you help us understand what is the gaming industry?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of gaming and specifically esports, the industry, in 2018, they're projected to close out of around like $906 million. So almost $1 billion in revenue, which is great. It's over like 30% year over year growth. And, the target demographic here, you could probably guess, are Millennials and Generation Z. So that's about 12 to 37 years old. It's a pretty wide span of people, which is pretty cool. And, the biggest games out there are like League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Super Smash Brothers. And, the reason why it's way more exciting than just traditional sports is because it can leverage the internet way more than those, sports can. With traditional sports, you have to physically be there. If you want to interact with your favorite player or athlete, you've got to, physically be at the venue, get invited, go pass through security and all that stuff. But if I want to communicate to my favorite athlete, in like say Smash Brothers, I'm actually wearing his jersey right now, Nairo. I just go to his Twitch stream when he's streaming. I can chat with him on the chat, or since I subscribe to him, I can play a game with him. I can actually practice with him if he's doing that at the moment.
And especially if you're good enough, you can pretty much make it big in this industry.
Yeah, you can actually. It's one of those things where you can actually pop up overnight because you can go practice online against really good people, whereas in like traditional sports, like it's pretty obvious if you're coming, but it's it takes decades. You start like a elementary school, like a intramural league, you end up in like a high school like varsity, and then you get into college, and then you get drafted. Whereas as soon as a new game comes out, like literally there are people that have never been in the spotlight before that just come out of nowhere.
And this is pretty unique about the esports industry, like you said, because in any industry, for a person to interact with their mentor, their idol, it's virtually impossible.
Yeah. I can give you an example of a really cool example of this in Smash Brothers. There was a tournament a few years ago called Apex. And Mewtwo King is a really popular name because he's been a pro smasher since like the early 2000s. So I think he holds the record for like the longest like esports career or something like that. At that tournament, he played against in grand finals against a player that had never entered a national tournament before, and that player, his name is Salem, won. He won the entire tournament. And then now, if you look at it today, they actually live like close together and they stream together now. So he literally went from nothing to like being like the best player.
Superstar.
Yeah.
Really cool. And that sounds really exciting. So now as a business or marketer, why should I care about that? I mean, I'm too busy trying to make money than to follow the latest game tournaments.
Right. So, one of the biggest, pieces of revenue in esports is brand investment. That lends about just under $700 million is put into brand investment. And, in terms of influencer marketing and sponsorships, it's around 360 million to like 170 million spent just on that kind of brand investment. And then you've got folk like the NFL and the NBA talking about traditional sports. They actually are putting a ton of investment into esports. So you've got Ninja, who is the most popular esports athlete right now. And he's been on the cover of ESPN to give you some kind of background on how popular he is. And he's doing ads for the NFL. As in, like, he tweets about his favorite team, which I believe are the Lions. And something that was really cool that happened a couple weeks ago is the NFL, paid him to restream a Monday Night Football game on his Twitch stream.
Wow. So we're talking about people in the virtual world, as you call them, esports athletes, for people that may not be familiar with the terminology.
Right.
They are interacting with the real world, and that's huge. Exactly.
And if you watch any of these tournaments, there's some brands that you probably expect that are advertising in these tournaments, like RedBull. RedBull loves investing in the weird sports, but then you've also got like Cup Noodles putting investment in. You've got Geico, which has their own
Geico.
Yeah.
I mean, they're an automobile insurance company,
right? And they started off as like a government, like I think that's what the G means.
Government.
Yeah. They have their own arm called Geico Gaming, which they're. It makes sense, like we said, they're targeting millennials and Gen Z, and so before you even drive, before you even have a license, you're probably thinking like, oh, Geico's really cool. They support my favorite game. Like, I'm going to
use them for my insurance when I start driving. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Wow, that is wild. Great explanation. So now as a marketer that's looking to take advantage of this newly discovered demographic, what kind of challenges am I likely to run into that I should know about?
Yeah, so the information is all over the place. Even for me as a hardcore fan, it's hard for me to stay up to date. If I'm like on vacation for a week, or it's just like a week of work where I have to keep my head down, because of the internet, because of how easy it is to compete and create content for these games, there's a lot that comes out. So there's nothing right now that helps you curate it, both as a fan and if you're a community manager trying to figure out how to use these athletes and these events for your own advertising. And at the same time, there are companies that are trying to do stuff with influencer marketing, like MVP Index. You might know them as experts in like traditional sports influencer analytics, but they're trying to apply old school style of analytics and influencer marketing to esports, which just doesn't work out. And like I said, like if you want to keep track, if you want to be part of all these different communities, they have all these their own personal culture that you'll have to like learn how to fit in with that community, with that specific games scene. And that's that requires like a full-time community manager for like each and every game.
I can certainly see that. I mean, for someone like me, and I'm sure even an expert, it's like you're drinking from a fire hose. There's so many different sources of information everywhere, and just keeping track of all that can be pretty overwhelming.
Right. And if you're not well versed in the scene, you don't know who to trust. You don't know who are the actual experts who are creating good content, relatable content for the folks that you're trying to advertise to.
It's pretty much like walking into a grocery store and every cereal box says 9 out of 10 mothers
Yeah,
approve of this. Makes you
exactly.
wonder who the 10th one is, but we won't go into that.
Right.
Really cool. So now I understand that you actually built a business, athletes.gg, around this. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so it started off with, like I said, my own personal difficulty in staying in touch with the scene. Um, and one of the things that struck out to me is there's the top Smash Brothers player and content creator, Zero. He's the best in the world at something, but he still had to tweet out, "Hey, is anyone like free to make a website for me?" Like, the kid didn't even have his own website. So maybe realize that these kids that are like 14 to like 22 that are becoming superstars in their games, they're just kids. They don't really know how to market themselves, put themselves in an advantage where they can make a living off of this, right? And I believe if you are like top 100 in the world, you should be able to make a living off of what you do. So basically, I was trying to figure out, how do I make it easy for these athletes to be relatable to folks in the scene and folks that are not in the scene yet, make it more mainstream. And then how do we use that to connect them to businesses that will actually, fund their lifestyle and their talent. So the idea with athletes.gg is, we create a network of fans and the top athletes, let them to connect, make it easy to curate a personalized feed of content and media that you can consume as a fan, and then leverage this network to help businesses and athletes connect, as influencers, and help these businesses get into esports, find these, up and coming athletes and, invest in them and, help them build a brand in esports. And the one of the ways that we're doing this is with the AG score.
What is that?
Yeah, so you can think of it as a wine score for esports. So if you're thinking about how people buy wine, a lot of people know they want a red or a white wine. They're like, oh, if I'm eating meat today, I'm going with red wine. If I'm doing fish, I'm doing white wine. And then, when they go to the store, they look for a nice label, something that is attractive, maybe has like a description that's like, oh, like this was like hand grown in like some rural area in California. And then they finally, open up an app or Google the wine and then look at the wine score. What does the wine score actually say, so that they feel comfortable and bring this home to their family and friends. So with esports, a lot of people know what game they want to get into. And then they look at like the competitor list, and, the thing that they really have to go on is like how interesting their gamer tag is, which is kind of like their alias for how they, so like my alias is Suit Up Alex when I go compete. But now with the AG score, they can actually, at a glance, understand if this athlete competes a lot, has a lot of content, interacts with their fans, just by looking at this number.
Cool. So it's pretty much like an influencer score for those of us in the B2B world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. So in your business, athletes.gg, you aggregate all this information about athletes and their AG score, so that the businesses can then look them up and then make a determination about who to go after.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So like the fans will just get that singular AG score, but the idea is the businesses will be able to create their own personalized AG score depending on what kind of marketing strategy they're going with at that moment. So say if you're, a brand like RedBull and you're quirky and all you care about is someone that can interact with their fans and spends a lot of time with their fans, maybe they tweak their AG score to only to weight it more towards Twitter interaction and, Twitch stream, how the quality of their Twitch stream. But if you're someone like maybe Underarmour or Nike, and your current strategy is we just want to focus on winners, we want our brand to be tied to winners, you can look at the AG score and weight it so that it's more closely related to how visible athletes are at tournaments. And that's one of the things that we're doing that no one else is doing right now. We're actually tying the athlete's performance at an event with their influencer score. So in the esports world, like in the fighting game community, big tournaments usually last 3 days. So if you're doing well, like you might get to top 32, which gets you 2 days of visibility. But if you are you get into top 8, you're winner. You are also there on finals day, where it's all just focused on you. It's all focused on how you're doing. Those 8 specific participants are doing at that tournament. So you can imagine, if you're going for winners, you're going for someone that will generate that kind of brand
awareness.
Yeah, exactly. Then you want you want your ag score to be weighted on.
Cool. I think that's pretty brilliant to give businesses the ability to tweak their ag score to their specific needs as opposed to a one-size-fits-all score.
Exactly. And different marketing strategies can change. Maybe, you want to do a set of ads targeted for winners, and then you want to do one that's a little more quirky. It even changes between times.
Pretty neat. Now, are there any other businesses you can give us examples of how they would use it? I mean, this sounds really cool.
Yeah. So I've actually been talking to folks at Uber, and for them, you can look on Ninja's stream right now, and he's got an Uber Eats advertisement there, but that's an obvious play, right? He's the number one athlete. Of course, if you've got to spend Uber, that makes sense. But if you're just teasing the waters, you haven't been in the esports community more, and you don't really have that kind of budget to just dive right in and find the top athletes, where would you go right now to find and have something to leverage in terms of negotiation on what kind of work you're going to do with an athlete? Obviously there are other platforms like Analytica and some more esports related ones, like Arsenal.gg, but none of them have this network effect that we're trying to build. And we're definitely thinking athlete first. Whatever makes the athletes happy, that's what will bring them to our platform and create a sense of trust, essentially. So like I said, if you're an Underarmour or Nike or Adidas, folks that I haven't seen do anything with esports recently or at all yet, this is who we'd be working with. To try and help them find the top athletes in Smash Bros. Or in FIFA or in League of Legends, and help them figure out who is the right kind of person for you to hire as an influencer marketer.
This is unbelievable. One of the things I really love about your platform is the way it's geared towards the young athletes who are pretty much children right now. They have no business experience, and they're vulnerable to people that want to take advantage of them, or I should say for people that may want to take advantage to them. And I'm just thinking back about my own experience becoming an entrepreneur, and everything is just unknown. You don't know your own value at first, and you don't even know where to go or what to do. And having someone like yourself, it's almost like you're mentoring them. You're building this business model in a box where they can come and they automatically are presented at their true value, and they're given their self-worth basically. Mm-hmm. And they're given a platform where they can leverage their worth in a way that makes it so that people don't take advantage of them. I think, just from that alone, it's an amazing opportunity and just a wonderful thing that you're doing.
That's exactly what we're doing for our the mission of athletes.gg is to empower these athletes, empower the community. So that's what we're totally focusing on. And you're right. If you're a 16-year-old, then there are some top 16-year-olds out there that are competing well and getting their name out there. You don't have an agent, like you said, you don't have anyone within your network to help you talk to these big companies, and that's kind of where the ag score is trying to normalize that. It's trying to normalize the playing field for everyone. Basically, and also, give you advice on like, what do you need to improve on? Do you need to work on your Twitch stream? Do you need to work on your Twitter followers? So again, give you guidance that's more focused and more general. You got Twitch and Twitter that do give you analytics, but it's not looking at a holistic sense of like who you are completely as an athlete.
And then, another thing that's interesting is that if you look at how the generation your generation has evolved, this makes someone from the millennial generation or even Gen Z uniquely suited to this task, because someone that's older, you haven't experienced this industry. You don't even know the first thing about it. And the fact that, you've grown up with this, that makes you uniquely suited to be in this industry. So kudos to you.
Appreciate it. Quite honestly, I'm just fortunate enough to take something that I'm passionate about and, help other people and help them grow their passion. So this is just too cool for me as well.
Yeah, awesome. So, I'm always curious, how did you get started with this?
Yeah, so I started making games when I was 8. So I've always, been in love with video games. And I've always been in love with creating. So just the natural arc of like, you make a video game, but then you need somewhere to put it, so you learn web development. And I to be honest, I did lose it for a little bit. I thought I was going to be a doctor.
Wow. Yeah. Totally different field there.
Yeah, exactly. So that, I realized it was not my vocation. I was not passionate enough about that.
Shooting those germs, it's almost like a video game.
Yeah. Funny you say that, because I actually made a video game that was about like being in the body and like destroying viruses. So, I always I always loved the idea of medicine, but, really wasn't what I'm supposed to do. So I'm honestly, I lucked out. The university, I went to Fordham University, and my senior year, they started an incubator for, it's a business school first. And I was an RA for a bunch of these business students, and a lot of them had a lot of great ideas, but they couldn't execute because they weren't technical. And I was like, hey, I've been programming, making apps since I was 8. Like maybe I can help you guys out. So I ended up making a business that functioned as kind of like your product team. You figure out the business plan, you figure out the product market fit, and then we'll help you bring the product to life. And then from there, jump through a couple startups, and then, got a call from my one friend from elementary school saying, hey, I'm starting this company with a buddy of mine, help.com. You want to be our first engineer? And then, the rest is history. As far as esports goes, though, like I actually started in the Counter-Strike community.
What's that?
So it's a first-person shooter. So a lot of people know like Call of Duty and Halo kind of. It's a similar thing, but this one's
I'm laughing because I'm like so totally lost with this.
Yeah, it's just like it's a really easy premise. You got counter-terrorists and terrorists. You join one side, and then you fight.
You try to annihilate the other side.
Yeah. But it's less brainless than that, because there's actually like economics involved, because you have to buy guns in the game, and how much money you get depends on how well you perform. So there's things like saving, like, so you might intentionally as a team not buy any good guns and get demolished, but you're saving money for a future round. So it's, I would definitely check it out. It's actually on TV. I think it's TNT that is actually has the TV show where it's on mainstream TV. You can go watch people play Counter-Strike, or you can tune into Twitch. I started out in the esports community there. Before it was really called eSports. Back then it was just called We Played Video Games. Fun. But that always stuck with me. I was like a server administrator for like one of the Counter-Strike clans up until like a few years ago. And then work on the way. But then I got back into eSports with the Super Smash Brothers community. Fell in love with that game. And now we're here.
That's an amazing story. I love your journey. So talking about cool technology. Technology is my passion. Can you talk about some of the emerging technologies being used in gaming, such as AR, VR, AI, and even IoT?
Yeah, for sure. What's super cool that I'm seeing some companies do is they're using computer vision, both in terms of augmented reality and AI, to help train these athletes. They can act, because everything is in the computer already. It's, some things you do have to analyze from the screen, but a lot of data is like just can be coming from the game itself. And so a lot of these companies are building these coaching apps that help you identify what you might be doing wrong, where you could be more efficient, decision making. And, that's super cool. That's like incredible. There's a guy in the Smash Bros community named Tafokins, and he's actually, he left his job at NASA to focus on, Smash Brothers, like analytics.
That just blows my mind. Wow.
Right. I think his tweet when he did it was like, oh, my mom's not gonna be super happy, but this is what I care about. So that's crazy. Obviously, in terms of the games themselves, there's a lot of push in VR. You got the PlayStation and Xbox that have these peripherals. You've got the Oculus Rift, obviously doing very well in the VR space, and you've got Pokemon Go, which is augmented reality video gaming. What's interesting is that company before, that's not their first foray into that. It actually started with a game that they built with Google. The company's called Niantic, where you literally would go, it's like capture the flag. You would just go to these specific hotspots that you would look on the Google Maps, and then you would just, take over that area. And it was just a big war between red versus blue,
And that's something even people from my generation get.
Right. Yeah. That's easy to get. And then they, obviously Pokemon adds a much higher layer on top of that. But, same idea. You just go to a gym and you try to win the gym and you win for your team. The cool thing there is that companies could leverage that game and put I think it was some kind of pin on the map. And then you'd be like, hey, we've got a Pokemon Go gym here. Come to our establishment and fight for your team and also buy our coffee or something like that.
There you go. And there's real money involved in that.
Yeah, exactly.
This is really cool. And one of the things that excites me about this is that while many of the applications may start off in gaming, because gaming is real time and low latency, you need some pretty robust innovation in order to adapt the technology to that platform. And once you've developed this technology for gaming, you can now leverage it anywhere. I mean, think about telemedicine and how using that same platform, that same VR technology, you could actually, if you're a doctor, so you're coming from the healthcare industry, right? You could actually administer medical care to someone in Africa.
Right. Yeah. And I think the microsurgeries that they do with computer controlled pincers and
yep.
all that, they use an Xbox controller or something like that.
There you go. This is really cool. I mean, I am so thrilled to be speaking with you, Alex. So tell me, how do people connect with you?
Yeah, so you can go to our site, athletes.gg. And if you're wondering why is it not athletes.com, so GG is the domain for esports and gaming. And this one, everyone will understand, when you used to play a soccer game, when you line up at the end of the game and you shake hands with the team, everyone says good game, right? So that's what GG means. It's just short for good game. So you can go visit us at athletes.gg. You can download our app on the Google Play Store. It'll be coming shortly to the Apple Store. And then if you want to reach out to myself specifically, you can just shoot me an email at alex@athletes.gg.
Awesome. Now, are you on Twitter as well?
Yes. So everything, all my handles is Suit Up Alex. It's a reference to How I Met Your Mother. I don't know if you ever watched that show.
But that's awesome. And what I'll do is I'll post all that information to the show notes so that people can click on it and get right to you.
Awesome.
Alex, do you have any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, each game has its own kind of culture within just the esports culture. You got, folks like in the Counter-Strike scene, they've been doing this for like several decades now, and just started with like the local tournaments where people would haul their humongous computers in and just play one another on like a Friday night and order pizza. And then you got something like Fortnite where they're just figuring out their scene, but because it's a baby of it's a game that only became big in the past year or two, they're still trying to figure out their esports scene and their culture, and so that's completely different. And then you got like the Smash Bros scene, which has always been grassroots, does not have the backing of its of the game creator Nintendo until like the past couple of months. So they've always just been doing things out of the passion of loving the game. So what I would say is, if you really care about esports, if you really want to get in as a company and promote your brand and do cool things in the space, you have to go to these tournaments, you have to watch these events, you have to I really if you can go to a physical tournament. It's awesome. All these like top athletes will just be walking around. It's amazing. Like,
and they're approachable.
Yeah, they're totally approachable. Like I went to the first major tournament for Smash Bros, the new Smash Bros game, just this past weekend, and it was just in a church community center. And it's just one big room. The stream setup's in the middle, but otherwise, I was waiting in line for pizza with right next to a top athlete. You can just bump on the shoulder, say hi, like, oh, I love watching what you do. It's not like an institution like traditional sports. I think the culture is great, like really open. So if you're a company that wants to get into the scene, go to your local tournaments, go to like the big ones, watch the Twitch streams. Interact with these players, and you'll probably slowly start to get it.
Awesome. Alex, I learned so much from you today. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom. I really enjoyed having you on the show.
Thank you, Abraham, and thank you for letting me be on your show and speak about my favorite thing.